Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the April 2019 Budget and Finance Committee workshop to order. And thank you all for being here an extra Tuesday this month. Appreciate it very much. We're here for a purpose because we have to adopt our budget by the 13th. So obviously we're going to be in the process of doing that tonight. So I'm going to open up the floor for anything anybody wants to discuss before we get into the dashboards. We'll get through the dashboards hopefully fairly smoothly here, and then get on to our budget, and then a reminder of some of our upcoming budget dates after that. So hearing none, I'll move into the dashboard. If you please take a look at your first page, your general fund. As you know, we review everything that is coded in red, and what makes that sample this week is, or this month, any revenue line item less than 53% and any expenditure greater than 63% would get denoted with red here. And we have some of our recurring culprits out here that are typically the case throughout the year. Sales tax, we know it tracks behind because there's a 60-day lag. It's tracking $524,000 greater year over year than last year. And if you do a little math on that and extend it out over the rest of the year, this suggests perhaps as much as a $900 to $1 million increase in sales tax revenue over last year's total collected, which was $31,800,000. So this, we should see by the end of the year our sales tax, if it continues to trend in this direction, and history has taught us that it typically does, that we should be somewhere in the vicinity of, I don't know, $31,750,000 or so, or greater if we have any a good Christmas season, for instance, in our shopping centers in the county and whatnot. So good news on the sales tax line item. State aid, DSS, tracking at 38%. Also due to something we're used to hearing, 60-day claim on, or lag on claims. In my meeting with the treasurer, did find out, and this was just yesterday afternoon, that the June claims have not been filed yet. And that is because there's a little bit of a transition going on in the department right now. We have, which some of you are, or all of you are aware of, and an individual came back from an extended leave, and I'll leave it at that, and is really trying to get these claims through as quickly as possible, and no reconciliations have been done yet year to date for the state aid for DSS or the federal when we get down to that line item. So that's a whole nother topic that we're aware of going on behind the scenes, and hoping for some resolution in the not too distant future on that. Also, I asked the treasurer, as it pertains to this, knowing that we need our financial statement completed by September 30th, knowing that Bonadillo has been in there taking care of some matters and trying to double check a lot of the accounting in that department to clarify the numbers on our aud, which is kind of a preliminary snapshot of what we think our year end is going to be. That do we have any clarity on that? And we do not yet. Bonadillo was there today, or they're going to come next week.
Yeah, we corresponded over the phone today. Instead of making two separate weekly trips, they're going to be here full day Monday, full day Tuesday, culminating in the 4 o'clock team meeting on Tuesday night next week.
Okay, that you had referred to in previous correspondence. Correct. To the legislature. Yes. So, I mean, we're just hoping to get some clarity by the end of August on just how accurate our year-end numbers were with DSS, simply because, if you recall, there was quite a large receivable at the end of the year, much larger than history teaches us should be out there. So we're certainly hoping that once they sort through all the information, that they'll be in a position to let us know that perhaps our numbers in the DSS budget that contributed to our year-end financial statement are a little more positive than we thought based on what we had to submit to get the audit completed by April 30th. State aid other is tracking at 33%, and that's a conglomeration, as you can see from your comment sheet, of the same categories that we talk about. The public defender is at 20% of their $596,000 budget, or $119 million. Mental health is at 26% of their $3.6 million budget portion of this line item. Mass transportation at 5%, and economic development at 3%. This is all a function of claims being submitted and being reimbursed. Obviously, some more vital than others. I mean, economic development, not that it's not vital, of course, but claims submitted for that are pertinent to specific projects as things are materializing here. You know, mental health is obviously more of an operational budget where their claims are submitted to the work that they do for the services that they provide. So nothing truly alarming there, even though it's running in the red. Much of this will catch up. And also, in the mental health, 26% of that budget is $937,000 roughly of the $3.6 million figure. And entries building this up to about $2.1 million in claims will be put through in the month of August. So we will see that rise, obviously, with another $2.1 million to add to the $937 that they've already put through this year. So, you know, I think next month, you know, it should look a little better after we process those entries. Federal aid DSS, 60-day lag, that is at 37%, and it's because of the lag. Also, as I mentioned, June claims not submitted yet, but they're working on getting them in with the person who just came back from an extended leave. Federal aid other, small amount of money, budget figure $51,480. No claims yet submitted, and that's largely emergency management grants. On the expenditure side of things, education tracking at 69%, so it's slightly above the 63% that would get it red flagged, largely because we've already paid 75% of our FMCC contribution, or $870,000. That's 3/4 worth, Sean, correct?
Yes.
So there'll be one more installment coming in the fourth quarter. And other community colleges, keeping in mind that we have to submit money to other community colleges that our residents attend from Montgomery County. That is at 50% of its $555,000 budget, or at $277,500, which have inflated that number. Again, a seasonality to that based on when these checks have to be cut to go to the college, our college and the other community colleges. Debt service running at 64%, just slightly making the sample here, and that is a function of the fact that in June, if you recall, we spoke last month when we looked at that one, that there's some of our bonding payments are due in semi-annual installments, and there was a large $2.2 million principal payment made collectively on several bonds as part of semi-annual principal payments in the month of June, slightly inflating this category. That should settle back down over the next few months. And transfers out, as we know, go to the county road fund as it's being used, and $4.7 million or 92% of the $5,169,000 has already been transferred out to cover county road fund needs. So that takes care of our general fund. If there's no questions, we'll move on to the county road fund. Couple categories here, this miscellaneous revenue category here of $13,800. So small, it's really not that noteworthy. It's at 26%, but something, nothing to be alarmed at there. The state aid chips, they've just begun to submit claims, and claims for 1.47 million are just put through, and should come in by September or so to be added into this revenue category once we get reimbursed for those claims. So it's the beginning of the snowball of chip money claims that obviously begin to occur when the weather gets good throughout the course of the summer into the early fall. And transportation as an expense at 78%, and that's a recurring theme here. That's because the snow contract has been paid in full, and road maintenance has begun for the season. So no other red categories there. Moving on to the road machinery fund, transfers in on an as-needed basis, and obviously a small budget figure here, $148,000 or $147,000 roughly. It's been amended down. And on the health insurance fund, we are looking at intergovernmental charges, tracking at only 29%. According to our treasurer, second quarter payments all came in during August. And so by the time we look at the August dashboard, it's still likely to be in the red, but only barely in the red based on the timing of these payments. And other fringe benefits as an expense at 78%, because FICA and disability have been paid for all fund employees for the full year. So a couple of explanations are ones we're used to hearing there, but nothing earth-shattering or alarming there. All right, let's move on to our budget. You have some material here in front of you. You have our adopted budget. You have this other printout, which is where we stand in each category year to date, see how much money we're using in each of our budget line items. And you also have a memo from the clerk explaining one of the line item categories as it pertains to salary increases that are going to be in the budget that are contractual in nature. So I'd like to go down line by line. I'd like to go down category by category. And one theme I think I just want to put out there on the floor to the rest of the legislature this afternoon or this evening is we've had some conversations with our departments about some brief meetings about and with actually, I've not had the conversation actually with any department, but with the executive regarding how he was going to approach departments going into the budget season, asking them as much as possible to cut things as much as possible. Unused positions that they don't need, that they carry forward from year to year, being an example. And to try as much as possible to bring their budgets in at level that they were last year or less, if at all possible. We know some of that's not avoidable, or is unavoidable, but but keeping in that theme, I want to at least conduct an exercise among ourselves where we talk about some of our categories in our budget to see if there's any adjustments that can be made to these totals that we're looking to budget in 2020, so that we too can carry out the same theme that we are asking the executive to convey to his staff and his department heads. So some of these we can't touch, we know that. Others, we can touch, but they're so small, it's not going to make a world of difference if we cut them, but it could make a difference in theory and in principle. So that's the only reason, and I'm not saying we need to cut anything, but I think it's worth having a conversation on some of our expense line items to see if it's a possibility. So keeping that in mind, looking down the budget, you can see our first category is all of the salaries of the legislators. including the chairperson, and obviously we know that this is where it's been since the legislature was established, with 15,000 for the chairperson and 10,000 per legislator, and I don't really see any place myself where where that would change, and unless somebody else wants to bring up something there. So then moving down our expense, I mean, I think it's admirable, first of all, just to digress, that, we, the legislature has been in force now, well, it's the 5th year, correct, 6th year. And these salaries have remained where they began when the legislature was created. And I think that speaks volumes as well. We're not looking to give ourselves pay raises for the jobs we do here. So that sends a message as well. Although it's, not a cut, we're keeping it at level. In the, moving down to the categories, the 10-4408, office supplies. Now here's some things where, with the input of the clerk, who is closer to these items and how they move, because she's operating this department on our behalf on a day-to-day basis. Worthy of some discussion. You can see office supplies, we budgeted $750. Our line item this year so far, we're at $505.25 through the end of July. So, Cheryl, any input on that? I mean, it appears as though we will probably use the rest of that $750, correct?
Yeah, so basically, the only thing that I really use that for is the toner cartridges for the printer, a few minor things. I have a lifetime supply of paper clips and pens I've never had to buy in forever. But four cartridges for the printer are $100 and some dollars a piece. So I'm gonna be ordering them soon, and that'll wipe that money right to pretty much zero.
Okay, all right.
Is there anything left for evidence?
Those come out of my salary, Ryan.
Good question, though. Thank you, number 2. All right, moving down, professional services. Within that line item is our contract with Bonadillo. Legislator Patel.
I was just gonna ask for what exactly we're using professional services. Is there anything besides Bonadillo?
The attorney fees for right now for the sanitary district.
But that's a pass-through, isn't it? Sanitary district, don't they pay their own fees?
We pay
Oh.
50%.
For the
Right.
settlement we've been working on for 15 years.
I can give an update on that if anyone wants it.
Sure. Well, we're at $52,000 of our $56,000 budget figure, so.
So the Bonadillo is around, I don't know, Sean, 47, 48,000, something like that. And then that leaves like 6,000 for any other,
How much is Bonadillo?
I thought it was 50.
I think it's 48.
Okay.
But that is, we don't know what it's really gonna be
When do they build that?
next
Because
year.
we're only at 7% right now.
Because we're working on the contract with them, the agreement, and the full amount hasn't been paid.
Because expected it just because we're only at $3,600 yearly.
Counselor, you had some input?
Oh, I guess just briefly, without going into executive session, we do have a judgment pending before the court on the sanitary district, so we should hopefully have a resolution within a couple months.
Okay.
But aren't you handling it? We don't have outside counsel anymore on that?
Sanitary district?
Yeah.
That is the same attorney that's been on it for 10, 15 years.
So we still have,
Yep, but part of our application is to recoup our attorney's fees on that. So,
and how is Bonadillo's fees for the past 3 years? I mean, have they been?
We kept them at level, if I'm not mistaken. Didn't we, John?
I believe there's been minimal increase.
Minimal
Yeah.
increase.
But I mean, there's not a 1% difference.
It's like,
No
it
large
was like
difference.
47, 46, 40,
So there really
45, 46, 47,000 something.
there isn't much room on that with the expectation of sanitary district attorney.
That doesn't appear to be number 9, you're correct.
Thank you.
All right, our next one is travel-related costs, $2,500. It still hasn't been used this year so far, but NYSARC is coming up, which is going to,
Nice,
or NYSAC, sorry, nice, thinking of, thank you, number 9. I was thinking of
Liberty.
the world of human services. So Cheryl, I mean, can you explain how you see that evaporating?
Well, I guess that amount has always kind of stayed at that range because it's dependent on you guys as a whole who wants to go. It could be one person or 3 persons, and so I'm going this year and it's $675, so that's one person. If
Mhm.
3 or 4 went, you know, that'd be $2,500. That also, excuse me, that amount includes my clerk of the board conference that is in May that I did not go to this year. I wasn't able to go. So,
What does that usually run?
well, I usually try to lobby for like a scholarship to get like, you know, part of it for free, but about the same, probably $700.
Oh, okay.
So.
Okay. Well, it's good we're having these conversations and looking at these amounts. Number 9?
You know, just for discussion purposes, I mean, we have these things that are inconsistent or they're small amounts. You know, if we don't know that we're going to use them and they're small amounts, I mean, those things, if we took them out and ended up using $1,500 in fund balance next year, we'd be better off to budget lower amounts on these with the expectation that we really don't know what they are and kind of set the trend for cutting our being sensible about our budgets and reducing the variables.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
I mean, if we took that out, you're going to reduce your budget by about 2%. And
Well, I don't think we can take it out completely, but we can certainly think about reducing it because if,
I guess setting the trend on the rest of what we're going to talk about
Yeah.
here, let's kind of keep an eye on something
Yeah.
like that.
well, I mean,
Chair,
yes.
and I agree, I understand what Liz Bertel's talking about, but we've also been on the case of not using fund balance and having a budget that is correct, and I think that's one of the things that we also have to be looking for is to come up with a sensible budget,
Right.
so that, how do we say that the other departments, you know,
Set that
when we
precedent,
don't
yeah.
increase it except for those minimal things that we have to, that we're also doing our due diligence on what we're supposed to be doing.
Well, then let's operate within the confines of this $2,500 figure. I've been here 3 years. None of us has gone to this NYSAC. Yet we have money in here for the NYSAC for 3 of us. We could probably take $500 off of that and still have enough room.
How about we reduce it to $1,250 and still leave enough room for the clerk to do what she needs to do?
That would not include, that would include for the 2 conferences that I attend, and none of you guys would be able to attend.
We should maybe leave enough money in for one of us to go, a chairman, you know, or one representative of the
I
legislature.
mean, I think $500 would, like, leaving 2,000 in would give it
How
a
about
little leeway.
2,000? All right. Everybody all right with that?
Yeah.
Knocking that down to 2,000? Okay. All right. Mileage allocations, $500. Such a small amount of money. I don't know that we, if there's any fat to trim there. Where are we at here?
It has not been used yet,
But-
but it's potentially going to be.
Okay. Okay. And potentially from, I mean, I think our chairman attended
Right.
a conference in DC, correct?
And dependent on if we can get a county car for the conference, which we're hoping to have, then we wouldn't have any mileage
Okay.
in September, but
Okay.
it's possible that we may.
All right. Association dues, 7,500. Cheryl, you know exactly what's in this number, right?
Oh, Sean walked out of the room. So I believe that the figure for NISAC, the NISAC dues is 7,324, 7,234, something to that effect. And then my two associations that I'm in are $175. So
That
when
could
Sean
use
and I
it.
looked at the numbers, he said just put it in. So it came out to be like $7,465, and he said put
Okay,
it to 7,500.
I think we can agree that that figure's probably accurate where it is. Legal notice advertising, $1,500. And we're at, well, we haven't used much of it, but
So right now, 3 of the local laws that you guys did were submitted to the state and approved, and I just got that information back, so they have to be published. We have one more local law coming up, which will be advertised before and after, and I'm not sure what other local laws we're gonna do before the year ends, but again, this number is dependent on how many local laws a year that we do.
right.
You know, so we're at 4, we'll be at 4 this year, which is not as many as we did last year,
Mhm.
but we still have a few months left, right, Megan? So that could, you know,
Probably not any real fluff there.
no.
Okay,
We don't know what the forecast is.
correct,
Right.
correct.
Right.
Better be safe than sorry on that one. All right, and so that knocks off total legislative board categories here. Moving down to the clerk of the legislature, you'll see that you have, in the deputy clerk, you have a memo here that describes the contractual increases that the clerk would be subject to, as well as the principal account clerk typist. And is that correct or not?
Yes.
Yes. And
Well, she's under the next section.
she's under the next one, but she's being referred to here as well, right? So the principal account clerk salary reflects a 2% increase on the base salary from 2017, and 2019 is 2.5% on the base salary, which is based on the CSEA agreement settlement of 2019. So we're contractually obligated there. Principal account clerk salary for 19 is 41,648. 20 salary would be 42,690, a difference of 1,042. And the CSEA increase for 2020 is 2.5%. So I know we've diverted down to the principal account clerk, but so I mean that number is what it has to be. It's just that simple by contract. By looking at the grid for the clerk of the board, you can see the change in salary from 2019 to 2020, going up to from 57,666 to 60,541, and the explanation behind how that differential is computed. So, and we have the deputy clerk position at 3,000, which has been the status quo salary line item for her filling that role. So I don't know that I see anything we can really adjust here. I don't know if you're all in agreement with that, or
One thing to note on the CSEA part of it is that they're paying additional health insurance, so, you know, that's not reflected in the number, but
right
it's be reflected in their salary.
in their salary, yeah. So as long as there's we're under the understanding that we're contractually obligated to make these increases, there's really not much for discussion here, you know. All right, moving on, county auditor, we talked about the principal account clerk. The overtime pay on the principal account clerk. Just want to open up that discussion a little bit.
That's to do with the year-end closing.
Yes. And that's what it's in there for. So does it get used every year, Cheryl? Did it get used last year? I know it was important for us to have it there when she was spending time late, when we were in there reviewing invoices the first year and a half of this legislative session. But that was used up for part of that as well.
I mean, it appears based on
Well, last year they used,
$181.
yeah. Maybe a little room there. You know, again, not a lot of money. It's more of a message where the executive can go back to his staff and say, the legislature's made some cuts where they can too in their budgets. And it's example setting. I mean, maybe we can take a couple $100 off of that, you know, and still have enough room. I'm just throwing that out there, that's for discussion, I'm not. Anybody got any ideas?
Well, I think, yeah, you could definitely, you know, at least do 100, 200. The only thing I worry about is that as you get more longevity, you get more vacation time. And because she's the only person in the office, when she leaves for vacation, no one does her work. So when
Right.
she comes back, she has to do it. So I
Double
would
duty.
think that would account for some. So I would say at least,
She may
you could
get,
do at least one.
There's a lot of time.
she gets comp time though, I think, doesn't
So
she?
Yes.
the comp time, it's my understanding the reason why the overtime was put in is because, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, they can't use comp time past November something. Like the month of November and December, they can't use their comp time. So whatever comp time they've earned, they get paid for that. And then
Okay.
they can't earn comp time,
The last
so that becomes an overtime line. So
Okay.
any time that's spent past the hours would be, and then you have like what Legislator Diamond said, the year-end closing stuff
Right.
that's going on.
So what does everybody think?
300.
Go to 300? Everybody all right with that?
Yep.
9, 8? You guys all right with that? 3, 2, 1? Everybody okay? All right, go to 300 on that. I think we'll be safe there. Auditor, the salary is what it is.
Chairman Pep, I just wanted to point out that with the auditor's position and the deputy clerk of the legislature, they're not subjected to like the percent, the 2% or 2.5%. Those
Okay.
salaries have stayed, they stay the same year to year. Unless you guys change.
Office supplies for the, in this general category at 700, 399 used last year.
67 years so far this year.
Cut it 200, 300.
Couple hundred there.
Make it 500.
Make it 500, all right. Let's make that one 500. Equipment rental lease, I believe, is related to a copier or something,
Yeah,
isn't it?
that's
It's gotta be
what it
paid.
is.
Okay, so that's that. And then on the next page, really all we have is contingency, which is carried in our budget because it's up to us to use it to grant contingent items throughout the course of the year. As we know, this year we used it up fairly quickly in the first couple of months of the year. And just for your own edification, I asked Sean here, when you look at the column for 2018, it only says that our budget was at 292. What's the discrepancy? And he said, essentially the 250, it's in our budget to begin the year, but as it gets apportioned out to other areas, it gets recognized in their budget, thereby reducing ours. So. All right, other than that, so just going back down over the changes we talked about, travel related costs down to 2,000 from 2,500. Overtime paid down to 300 from 500. And office supplies in that area down from 700 to 500.
So $900.
$900 total. I think most importantly, we're talking about cutting up small pieces of pie here, but it's more an example than it is anything. But, you know, we should try to practice what we preach to the executive as well, so. Everybody all right with these changes?
Yes.
Everybody? Okay.
So I'll submit this to the treasurer and then send you guys an updated spreadsheet.
Okay. And last but not least, in front of you is the dates. I just want to go over the dates with you again to refresh your memories as to the timing of some of our meetings coming up. So here we are in the top third of the page adopting our own budget by August 13th. Excuse me. The executive needs to submit the county budget to the clerk on September 5th, which is a Thursday. From that day forward, we are all able to pick up a copy of the budget on the 5th, 6th, or Monday the 9th, or choose to receive it at the meeting on the 10th. The meeting on the 10th will be at 6 p.m., and it's the meeting where the county executive and the county treasurer meet with us to review the document and the budget. The things that happen at that meeting, you can see the bullets at the bottom of the page. We're going to discuss the report that's required to be filed with the clerk of the legislature, which is a letter that we write to the executive about the budget. The clerk of the legislature will hand out hard copies and email budget form for amendments to the tentative budget. So that's the night we'll also get our budget amendment forms. Those forms must be returned to the clerk by Monday, September 16th. Straw votes on the possible amendments by the legislature will be taken on Monday, September 23rd. So we'll have a meeting on the Monday, the 23rd, and where we do the straw votes. And also on the 23rd, we're going to have our major departments come in on Monday. So on Monday the 23rd, well, the order of things will be the departments will present. We will do a straw vote. And another thing I need to make you aware of that was just presented to me this evening when I got here. Typically, our committee meetings would be on Tuesday the 17th. Our executive, our treasurer, our clerk, and our council will be at NISAC. So what we are proposing, and the reason we're proposing it now is because we have to put a resolution through this month to change dates of meetings, is to skip the committee meeting on 9/17 because they're not going to be here. Hold the committee meeting on Tuesday, September 24th, plus the public hearing on the budget. And then on October 1st, if you turn the page, we got to be here October 1st anyway, for the second public hearing. We'll have the second public hearing, and we'll do our September board meeting on 10/1. And right after we do our September board meeting, we will then adopt perhaps a budget resolution at that time. So three things will happen on the 10th. The second public hearing, our full board meeting, and then adopt the resolution for the budget. So the meeting dates, you know, to be aware of are Monday, September 10th, Monday, September 23rd, Tuesday, September 24th, and then Monday, well, no, Tuesday, was it the 1st? It's the first? Tuesday the 1st.
On Monday the 23rd, do you want me to reach out to those 4 departments to let them know? And do we, you know, do you have a time frame? Like what order are you gonna do them in? Does it matter? Just have everyone here at 5?
We're gonna add the other,
And is there anybody else you wanna add?
list
Yeah.
too.
We could talk about that. We were talking about it earlier in the year. If we want to add them, we can.
Add who?
Public health. Why not?
6 o'clock?
Yeah.
We have it scheduled for 5.
Or no,
right
5.
now.
But yeah, that could be a long night, so let's do it at 5. I mean, I don't know if it could be a long night, but there's a lot of things to get through, let's put it that way. So when you guys get your possible amendments, we do have to get them in by Monday the 16th, but Cheryl will not be here to compile them until Thursday the 19th. So once she compiles them, on our desks on Monday the 23rd will be the list of proposed changes that everybody's gonna make and the initials of each legislator next to them who is recommending them, like we always do. And we will take that straw vote that night on those, we'll go line by line on those. So,
I'll have Deb will be working on them.
Okay.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday,
other than that, I'm all set unless there's somebody else who wants to, yes, let's switch.
I just have one other request. When we do the rest of the county budget, I see on this one, we have one actual. I would like to see a couple of actuals from prior years, so we can compare.
Oh, okay,
Because right now, you're comparing actual 18
yes.
last year's budget.
when you put your tentative
We're hoping to
together,
get 19 actuals done, if now we can go on 17.
Okay. Yeah, I would like to see a couple. That gives us a trend.
Yeah, better
It
trend.
helps. It
Okay,
helps because, you can't really go by 1 year.
No.
One can be an anomaly,
correct.
so.
Thank you. That's a good point.
Chairman,
Yes.
do we have, I briefly talked about this last week, but I want to bring it up in front of the legislature. I know I'm getting charged everything I buy on the internet now with sales tax. Do we have a way of tracking or knowing?
So, yeah, it's
We'll find out later this year.
It's an interesting question. It's
Everything
just
on
started
Amazon now
collecting it.
comes with sales tax.
Yeah, and we're just starting to get those payments from the state, and we're it's kind of wait and see to see how significant that's going to be.
But you have no way of tracking it.
No.
No, and the state has spent the last 2 years trying to figure out just how to collect it from the big boxes like Amazon and
I think
Etsy.
they probably don't know either, because it's so new to them. They got these funds coming in. What's our percentage of it?
Yeah, this is, it's something we've been working as part of the state association and the county executives association to try to get done, and finally it's done, so hopefully we're gonna start to see some of that this year. But we haven't got a ton of information from the state, they just started collecting.
Would that just come in under the general sales tax fund, or would it say?
It hasn't been coming in at all.
No.
We haven't been getting any of it. But, what I've heard from the county executive and treasurer that I didn't realize it was starting to trickle in already. I thought we were gonna have an idea by the fourth quarter.
Yes, July, I believe, is when we started receiving those payments.
I bet it's gonna be pretty substantial.
We're hoping, but trying to keep those hopes and
Expectations,
yeah.
And as a matter of
It'd be a
fact,
nice relief if it was.
I believe their approach to putting this budget together for 2020 has been not to estimate what that might be, because it's too soon to tell. So rather than plug in a figure, we have no idea where it's coming from or what it's gonna be, I think we're gonna look at that as, yes, a bonus or a windfall for a year to see what the pattern is until we can plan on it perhaps for the 2021 budget,
Eric Needle asked for a request and use money in his budget.
Well, that's a fantastic segue, Chairman. I just wanted to give just a brief update on the meeting with some of the bigger departments. Met with DPW today, 2-hour session of, going back to, digging into the backup as to why any increases were in there, and, if it wasn't the maintenance agreement or something contractual came out. We still have a ways to go, but we've made the first chop, so to speak, and have cut well over $2 million out, and we have about another $2 million to go. So that's where we're at now, and we're gonna keep plugging away and, really focus on personnel next week and finish up DPW and IT this week. So we're moving well. We've met with some of the legislators and trying to incorporate your goals, because they are our goals into one, and so far so good. Not easy work, but we're breaking away at it.
And, one of the main themes we try to bring home, talking about that is, my first year here, the first budget we looked at had a year-over-year changes of about $600,000 increase. Last year, it was 400 something. What we had asked the executive to do was to try and bring it home a budget where if at all possible, there's no increase or a reduction, you know, and also, in an effort to, obviously, not, you know, we're not in a position where we can't use fund balance to balance our budget, but to begin to take a major strides in the direction of reducing the amount of our dependence on the fund balance. And we're really trying to get down to a goal where, I mean, the past few years, we've been in a 3.7, 3.8, 3.9 range, trying to get it down maybe to about 2.5 million, which would be a quantum leap for the pattern that we've been experiencing. But even so, you know, as Legislator 9 brings up, I mean, you know, we're even a succession of 2 or 3 years of using $2.5 million in fund balance. You know, once we see how the dust settles on 2018, once the DSS numbers are sorted out, I mean, we're down in around the $6 million range here, $5.5 to $6 million left. So we got to take some drastic steps, or else, you know, that fund balance would be gone in 2 to 3 years if we continue to use it, even at a clip of $2.5 million a year to balance our budget.
With that being said, though, Mike, with our budget that we just put together, then should we we had 250,000 in the contingency, should we take that and whittle it down a little bit so that it looks like we are no increase in our budget at all? So we've knocked ours down $900. Should we take a little bit more out of that so that it looks like we have exactly 0% increase?
And also, not only that, another message it sends is to the rest of the people. There's not gonna be a ton of contingency for you guys to come back to us and say, can I do this, can I do that, can I do this, can I do that? It'll pull in the reins a little bit on that. So let's just take a quick look at that for conversation's sake. You know, our budget year-over-year increase is about $6,000. So, I mean, if we cut our contingency to 2.25, took 25,000 off of it.
There you go.
You know, that would send a dual message.
That's a compromise,
We-
that's a nice message.
We would bring, you know, we would bring home a budget that's less than last year, and we would be telling the rest of the departmental world that there's less of a pie for you to come back to us for anomalies in your budget. Food for thought, number 9.
I don't have any problem with that reducing $25,000. We usually spend the contingency really quick
Well, we did-
anyways,
Yeah,
but if we're going to try to set a trend, then maybe that's a good place to start.
what's everybody think?
Oh, it's a nice principle. Will come the budget year, when these departments have to operate, things are gonna happen.
They will.
So I think we just have to be mindful that if that's the position we're gonna take now, when the time comes, we're gonna have to send some of these people back to their offices and tell them to realign their own budgets and suggest, rather than going through contingency as quickly as they need to, that they can adjust their own budgets accordingly. Start change there. That has to happen during the year, not here.
And that's another message, by the way, that we conveyed to the executive and the treasurer was major departments, these positions you carry year over year that you end up not being filled, let's get them out of there unless they're, you know, I know, for instance, in one of the major departments, so for instance, Sean indicated to me some of the positions that are in there are accounting positions that I think we'd all agree we need the right people in because of what has been going on there. But there's 3 or 4 other positions, you know, I mean, there may have been 7 or 8 positions that haven't been on, there may be 3 or 4 other positions that can come out. You know, I mean, you're operating without them now. You know, I mean, just to have them in there, in case somebody comes along that you can fill them with, is fluff. Number 9.
I think the tone of our discussions were if they weren't mission critical positions and they've been open, then there's no sense in keeping them.
Right.
I agree.
And they're, you know, and it's, you know, I guess the 2 major departments there would be DSS, DPW perhaps, I don't know. And or sheriff.
Yeah, sheriff used to be the number one on the list, now he's getting pretty close to full staff. DSS, absolutely, there's some confusion over one position in which, our civil service had informed them that even though they wanted to transfer money into that line, it didn't exist anymore because it was eliminated by this very legislature. So, to say that there's some spots there is 100% accurate.
And the
So,
other
and that's
point,
a lot of the low hanging fruit that's out right on the first take.
another point about the sheriff, preliminarily, because of the extra income he's creating through the foreign prisoner route, his budget has come in less, mid-five figures, less than it was year over year. Another step in the right direction. Creating, your appropriations may be up a little bit, but your revenue is up a lot higher than it was, thereby, bringing this baby home at a number that's less than it was last year. And if we can begin to, create this mentality through our own actions, through the executive conveying the same message, then they're all steps in the right direction. So did we agree on doing down to kind of 225?
Yeah.
Are we all right with that?
Yes.
And being mindful that, let's face it, when we use the 250, if somebody comes back with something that they need, we use the fund balance, that they absolutely need. I don't think,
I think also before you use the $225,000, then I think rather than waiting for it to be an empty till, they really should look hard at their own budgets and see what's available there rather than just leaving scraps on the table.
Yeah, I would just add to that, a lot of the smaller budgets are similar to the experience you just had, but they don't have a contingency, right? You guys have had, $5,000 or $6,000 increase in salary, and you whittle down 1,000, like you said, out of principle. That's what we did to some of these other, most of the smaller departments, all the increases were salary. The rubber's meeting the road on DPW, DSS. Public health came in 200,000, I think, under what they were last year. So they were the big winners, public health and the sheriff's office, but we're gonna be doing some changes to both of them as well. So we're getting there.
Yep.
It's really focused on the big one for now.
all right, if there's nothing else to discuss, thank you all for coming this evening. Yes, number 9.
Can we go into executive session to discuss the sewer district, so you can give us an update?
Sure.
Anybody have a problem with that?
Can you make a motion?
I'd make a motion for that.
We need a second.
A second.
Number 2.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Okay, go ahead.
What's that?
We'll all be dead by then.
Yes.
We're supposed to have a
Motion
decision
to have
on this
executive session.
Second.
shortly. So it should
All in
be-
favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And go.
Motion, before I adjourn, just bringing up Felix Catina's name. If any of you have HBO, there's a documentary on HBO, a 2-part documentary about a trial up north that he presided over as judge, called Who Killed Ryan Phillip. It was a young boy, 12 years old. It happened in like 2012. And actually, he had to come down from there to marry my daughter in 2016. He's still hearing things. But what happened was
Is your son-in-law?
No, Felix did. What happened was because the whole community over 4 years was prejudiced about who they thought committed the murder, and they didn't think they could get a fair trial from a jury. The defendant elected to have the judge make the decision on that trial. So he had to render this decision, and it was a very potentially racially charged decision as well, because the defendant was of color, so it was it's an incredible documentary. And if you want to be proud of somebody from Amsterdam in our area, in our county, watch that show. He's more featured in the second segment than the first. I think the first one sets up the whole thing, and then the second one is the whole trial.
Who played him in the film?
He played himself.
You did?
No,
Yeah,
no, it's a
it's a
documentary.
documentary.
Yeah, it's a documentary, so I mean, you see him in action, you know, and they have subtitle, you know, subscript on the screen about decisions he made when he isn't speaking, and there were other times there, you know, that they were actually filming him in action, so. Anyway, motion to adjourn?
Motion?
Meeting adjourned 7:06. Thank you.